Welcome back to Going Deep on NDEs. Today, we're going to be talking about Dr. Raymond Moody.
Okay.
And his really groundbreaking research that he did in the 1970s.
Yeah.
And this was like the world's first comprehensive study on NDEs.
Right.
So this is really fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. And it's amazing that he had the courage to tackle this back then because,
Yeah.
NDEs were shrouded in mysteries.
You're right.
People thought they were hallucinations or just made up.
Yeah.
He really opened the door for serious discussion and research.
Absolutely. So let's start with Dr. Moody himself.
Okay.
Who was this guy that decided to venture into the unknown?
Well, he was a fascinating figure. He was a philosopher,
Okay.
a psychiatrist, physician, and author.
Wow.
And his curiosity about consciousness, especially what happens at the edge of life and death,
Right.
really drove his work.
And that's what led him to interview 150 people for his book, Life After Life.
Exactly.
And what did he find? Was there like a common thread that he found?
There was
Yeah.
what was remarkable is the consistency he uncovered.
Okay.
These 150 individuals came from such diverse backgrounds.
Yeah.
They had NDEs under wildly different circumstances.
Right.
But their stories shared striking similarities.
Okay, so it wasn't just to cover random overlaps.
No, not at all. There were
Oh.
distinct patterns.
Okay, wow. That's pretty compelling.
Yeah,
It sounds like he really tapped into something universal about the NDE.
I think so.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the core elements that he identified?
He found 15 common elements.
15.
Yeah, but not everyone experienced all of them.
Okay.
And the intensity seemed to correlate with how long someone was clinically dead.
Oh, wow.
But one of the most intriguing is the concept of ineffability.
Ineffability.
Yes.
That's a mouthful. What does that even mean?
The struggle to articulate the NDE.
So they can't find the right words.
It's more than that.
Yeah.
Words themselves are inadequate.
Oh, so it's like trying to explain colors to somebody who has been blind from birth.
Exactly. One person in the book compared it to describing a four-dimensional world
Okay.
using our limited three-dimensional language.
It just falls short.
It does.
Did anybody try to put it into words?
Oh, they tried. One woman said it was like being in a realm with senses we don't even possess and trying to convey those experiences with our limited earthly vocabulary.
Wow, that must be incredibly frustrating.
I would think so.
It makes you wonder if we need entirely new ways of communicating.
It does.
Yeah.
It highlights the limitations of language and the depth of what these individuals went through.
So ineffability is one element. What else?
Another common element, and perhaps the most unsettling,
Okay.
is hearing the news.
Hearing the news. You mean like news from the outside world?
Not quite. Imagine this. You're hovering above your own body,
Okay.
watching the doctors work frantically,
Okay.
and you hear them pronounce you dead.
That's chill. So are we talking about out-of-body experiences?
Precisely. Many individuals recalled observing their resuscitation from this detached perspective. One woman even overheard her doctor calling her family
Oh my God.
and saying, "I'm so sorry she's gone."
That must be so surreal
I can't imagine.
and disorienting. Did anybody else share a similar story?
Many did. A young man who was in a car accident
Okay.
recounted hearing the paramedics say, "He's gone,"
Wow.
while he was looking down at his own lifeless body,
Oh.
thinking, "But I'm right here."
It's almost like their consciousness was operating on a different plane.
It seems that way, this sense of awareness persisting,
Right.
even when the body is unresponsive.
Right, but it's not just auditory.
No.
What else is there?
Another fascinating aspect is the feelings of peace.
Feelings of peace. I would think being pronounced dead would be terrifying.
You would think so.
Yeah.
But there's this recurring theme of deep tranquility and serenity. Despite what should be a life or death crisis, one man, after suffering a serious head injury,
Okay.
described feeling a profound peace,
Wow.
a complete absence of worry or fear.
Like the fear of death just evaporates.
Yeah. Seems that way. Another person who was revived after a heart attack said it felt like all the weight of the world just lifted off.
Wow. So alongside ineffability and hearing the news, we have this profound sense of peace.
That's right.
Did Dr. Moody find any other common sensory experiences?
He did. Many people describe hearing a distinct noise,
Okay.
often a buzzing or ringing, sometimes even a whooshing sound.
So not like the stereotypical harp music?
Not exactly.
Or angelic choirs?
Some did report hearing beautiful music,
Okay.
but others described it as more of a humming vibration.
Interesting.
One person likened it to wind chimes and a gentle breeze.
Okay, so it seems like the auditory experiences varied quite a bit.
They did.
What about visual sensations? Did anybody describe anything striking?
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Many individuals reported moving through a dark tunnel.
Okay.
or a void-like space.
Ah, the famous tunnel.
Yes.
That's become almost synonymous with NDEs.
It has, and Dr. Moody's work played a big part in solidifying that imagery.
So it wasn't like a thing before.
Well, it was, but he really brought it to the forefront.
Right. One man who had an NDE as a child said it was like moving through a long, dark sewer pipe with a rhythmic ringing sound.
Interesting.
There's that auditory element again. Did anybody else have a similar tunnel experience?
Many did. Another person described it as being sucked through a black vacuum at warp speed.
Wow.
Almost like a roller coaster ride.
It's fascinating how consistent these descriptions are.
It is.
Even though they're coming from different people, different backgrounds.
I know.
This tunnel seems to be a powerful, recurring visual element.
Absolutely. And often at the end of this tunnel, people encounter a brilliant light.
The legendary light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly.
I'm guessing this came up a lot in Dr. Moody's interviews.
It was incredibly common, but it wasn't just any light.
Okay.
It was often perceived as a being of light radiating warmth and love.
So not just a visual phenomenon, but something more conscious and intelligent.
That's how many people described it. This being of light seemed to communicate with them.
Okay.
Not through words, but through a kind of direct mind-to-mind connection.
Wow. That opens up a whole new world of questions.
This being of light is often interpreted through the lens of the individual's own belief system.
So like a devout Christian might see Jesus, a Buddhist might see Buddha.
It's not always a specific religious figure, but rather this sense of connection to a higher power that resonates with their existing beliefs.
Yeah.
Some describe it as a deeply personal God,
Right.
Others as a universal life force.
Did anybody actually describe what it looked like?
Not really. Most just described an overwhelming light,
Okay.
often white or golden, radiating warmth and love.
Okay.
The focus wasn't so much on a specific form, but on the feeling that it evoked.
Yeah.
One woman described it as a pure, crystal clear light,
Okay.
an illuminating white light,
Okay.
and emphasized the feeling of pure love emanating from it.
So you mentioned communication. How does that work if there's no talking?
It's often described as a direct mind-to-mind transfer of thoughts and emotions.
So like telepathy?
You could say that no words are needed
Okay.
because understanding just flows effortlessly
Wow.
between the individual and the being of light.
So what kind of information is being shared?
One of the most common themes is a life review.
A life review?
Yes, the being of light presents a panoramic view of the individual's life,
Okay.
highlighting key moments.
Like a highlight reel of their entire life?
Kind of. It's described as an incredibly vivid and rapid experience where events are relived with intense clarity.
Okay.
Almost like a fast-forward replay of your life, but with heightened emotions and insight.
Does it feel judgmental?
Interestingly, no.
Okay.
It's more about reflection and understanding.
Okay.
The being of light often asks questions
Uh-huh.
that prompt the individual to examine the choices they've made and their impact on others.
So having essentially glimpsed the afterlife,
Right.
does this life review change how people view their own mortality?
One of the most significant after effects Dr. Moody observed was a diminished fear of death.
Okay.
Having experienced the continuation of consciousness beyond the physical body, death became less of an ending and more of a transition.
That makes it's like the fear of the unknown just dissipates.
Exactly.
Because they've had a taste of what lies beyond.
Right.
Did people's spiritual beliefs change after an NDE?
NDEs often led to a shift in spiritual perspectives.
Okay.
Even for those who had strong religious convictions beforehand.
Okay.
It wasn't about abandoning their faith, but deepening it and incorporating this new understanding of consciousness and the afterlife.
So their beliefs became less about dogma?
Exactly, and more about personal experience.
I can see that. And would that affect how they live their lives after the NDE?
He observed that many individuals return from their NDEs with a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper appreciation for life.
Yeah.
They often became more altruistic,
Okay.
focused on making a positive impact on the world.
So it's not just a passive experience.
Right.
It's a call to action.
In many ways, yes. It's a wake-up call that inspires them to live more authentically, nurture their relationships, and contribute to something larger than themselves.
Right.
One man said he no longer worried about trivial things.
Okay.
He quit his stressful job and dedicated his time to volunteering at a children's hospital.
That's inspiring. But I imagine it's not always easy to integrate such a profound experience back into everyday life.
One of the challenges many NDers face is the difficulty of sharing their experience with others.
Why is that? You'd think people would be fascinated.
You'd think so, but in the 1970s,
Yeah.
NDEs were even less understood than they are today.
Right.
People often encountered skepticism, disbelief.
Really?
Or even ridicule when they tried to share their stories.
Wow. So they were basically told they had imagined it.
Exactly.
Or were making it up.
It was often dismissed as a hallucination or a side effect of medication.
Wow. Imagine having this life-altering experience.
Right.
And then being told it wasn't real.
That must have been incredibly isolating.
It must have been.
It seems like Dr. Moody's work was crucial in giving a voice to these individuals and legitimizing their experiences.
Absolutely. Life After Life opened up a space for dialogue research.
Exactly.
And understanding. It gave people a framework.
Yes.
For interpreting their own experiences.
Right.
And help them feel less alone.
Absolutely.
What a powerful legacy. We've covered a lot.
We have.
The tunnel, the being of light, the life review,
right.
and the lasting impact of these experiences.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that stood out in Dr. Moody's research?
There is.
That we haven't touched on yet?
One more element that deserves attention, the idea of a border or limit.
A border, what does that mean?
Some individuals describe encountering a boundary during their NDE, often visualized as a line of fence, a body of water, or even a mist.
Like a point of no return?
It's often perceived that way.
Okay.
In some cases, individuals feel they could cross this border and move further into the afterlife, but something draws them back.
What causes that? Is it a conscious choice or something else?
It varies. Some feel it's their own decision to return, driven by a sense of responsibility to loved ones or unfinished business in their lives. Others feel they're sent back by a higher power with a specific purpose or mission to fulfill.
Do any of the stories from Life After Life kind of stand out as examples of this border experience?
One woman described feeling like she was on a ship sailing towards a distant shore where deceased loved ones were waiting for her. She could see them beckoning.
Wow.
But she felt a strong resistance to joining them.
Interesting.
She was eventually drawn back against her wishes.
Oh, wow.
With the sense that her time had not yet come.
It sounds like a tug of war between this world and the next.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Another individual described approaching a gray mist and feeling that crossing it would mean entering the afterlife. He was met by a deceased relative who told him, "Go back, your work on Earth has not been completed."
It makes you wonder about the nature of our existence.
It does.
Like there's a plan, even if we don't fully understand it.
Exactly. It raises profound questions about life, death, and what might lie beyond.
This has been an incredible journey so far.
It does.
I can definitely see why Dr. Moody's work ignited such widespread fascination with NDEs.
He challenged conventional thinking about consciousness and the afterlife, and it continues to inspire research and exploration to this day.
So we talked about individuals being drawn back from that border between life and death. But how does that actual return to the physical body happen? Is it a gradual process, or is it more like flipping a switch?
It's often described as being just as sudden and jarring as the initial departure.
Really?
Yeah, imagine going from this expansive, transcendent realm back into a physical body that might be in pain or distress.
Yeah, that sounds like a recipe for sensory overload.
It can be.
Do any of Dr. Moody's interviewees describe what that transition felt like?
Some recall a feeling of being pulled back through that same tunnel that they entered through, like a reverse journey. Others describe a more abrupt sensation, like a sudden jolt or a feeling of falling back into their body. One woman who had an out-of-body experience during surgery said it felt like a ton of bricks suddenly dropping back onto her.
Wow, that must be so disorienting.
It is, especially for those who are in that peaceful state with the being of light. It's almost like being ripped away from paradise.
It makes you wonder if that sense of displacement ever fades.
Yeah.
Do these individuals ever fully readjust to life after having such a profound experience?
Many describe this feeling of longing for that other realm. A sense that they didn't quite belong back here. But for most, this feeling gradually gave way to a deeper appreciation for life. And a renewed sense of purpose.
So like a reverse culture shock.
Exactly.
They've seen a glimpse of something extraordinary. And now everyday life seems a bit dull by comparison.
That's a great analogy.
But instead of letting that disillusion them, they often channel that experience into positive change.
Exactly.
Dr. Moody found that NDers often became more compassionate, less materialistic, and more focused on personal growth.
That's right.
So in a way, the experience of dying helped them to truly live.
I think so.
That's beautiful. I'm thinking back to those who were told their work on Earth wasn't finished. Did they talk about what that work entailed?
It was very individual. For some of it was fulfilling family obligations, raising children, or caring for aging parents.
Okay.
For others, it was pursuing a passion, completing a creative project, or simply living a life of kindness and service.
It's like they were given a second chance, not just to live, but to live more intentionally.
Exactly.
But even with this newfound purpose, I imagine it wasn't always easy to share their experiences.
No, it wasn't.
We talked earlier about the challenge of ineffability.
Right. Many NDEs struggled to put their experience into words, and even when they could, they were often met with disbelief or ridicule.
It's sad to think that something so profound could be dismissed so easily.
It is.
It highlights how important Dr. Moody's work was.
Absolutely.
In validating these experiences and creating a space for open dialogue.
Life After Life was groundbreaking. It gave NDEs a voice, helped them feel less alone, and opened up new avenues for research into consciousness and the possibility of life after death.
It's truly remarkable. We've covered so much ground today. We have the tunnel, the being of light, the life review, the border between life and death. And yet it feels like we've only just begun to explore this fascinating subject.
There's still so much we don't know, but Dr. Moody's work gave us a foundation, a framework for understanding these experiences.
Absolutely.
And when we might tell us about the nature of reality itself.
It certainly leaves us with a lot to think about.
It does.
If the acquisition of knowledge continues, even after death, as many NDUs report, what does that tell us about the true nature of learning? And the potential of human consciousness?
That's a question that has captivated philosophers and scientists for centuries. And one that Dr. Moody's work has brought to the forefront of modern consciousness research.
Well, we'll leave our listeners with that thought-provoking question.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey into the world of NDEs.
My pleasure.
And the groundbreaking work of Dr. Raymond Moody, here on Going Deep on NDEs.
This has been the A.J. Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe.